What if your phone had favorites? What if it recognized your face faster than your grandma's? You might think that's impossible, but it's not. Your phone can do that because of something called bias. You'll learn what that means in a minute. But first, let's think about how your phone can recognize faces. It's like a super powerful computer that can look at pictures and say yes, that's you, or no, that's not you. But how does it do that? And what does bias have to do with it? Imagine you have a lemonade stand. You want to know if a customer likes sweet or sour lemonade. You can ask them, but that's like asking your phone to recognize a face. It needs to make a decision based on what it knows. A neuron is like a tiny worker who looks at numbers and decides yes or no. It's like a lemonade taste tester. If the customer likes sweet lemonade, the neuron says yes. If they like sour, it says no. But what if the neuron has a preference? What if it likes sweet lemonade more than sour? That's called bias. So, let's break down what bias means in AI. Bias is like a preference that a neuron has. It's like a tiny arrow that points in one direction. When a neuron gets a signal, it looks at the numbers and decides yes or no based on its bias. But how does the neuron get its bias? That's a great question. The neuron gets its bias from the data it's trained on. If the data is biased, the neuron will be biased too. For example, if you train a neuron to recognize faces, but the data only has pictures of people with blue eyes, the neuron will be biased towards recognizing blue eyes. Let's see an example of how bias works in a real neural network. Imagine we have a neural network that recognizes pictures of dogs and cats. We train the network on a dataset of pictures, but the dataset is biased towards dogs. What happens when we show the network a picture of a cat? The network will say dog because it's biased towards recognizing dogs. But what if we add more pictures of cats to the dataset? The network will start to recognize cats too. That's because the bias is adjusted when the network sees more data. So, why does bias matter in AI? It matters because bias can affect how AI systems make decisions. For example, if a self-driving car is biased towards recognizing white cars, it might not recognize black cars. That's a problem because it can lead to accidents. But if we understand how bias works, we can fix it. We can add more data to the dataset to adjust the bias. That's why it's crucial to understand bias in AI. So, let's recap what we learned. We learned that bias is a preference that a neuron has. We learned that bias comes from the data a neuron is trained on. And we learned that bias can affect how AI systems make decisions. Here are the key points. Asterisk bias is a preference that a neuron has. Asterisk bias comes from the data a neuron is trained on. Asterisk bias can affect how AI systems make decisions. That's it for today's lesson. You now know what bias is and how it works in AI. Next time, we'll learn how neurons can adjust their bias. It's called learning, and it's a powerful tool in AI. You'll see how neurons can learn from data and adjust their bias to make better decisions. Don't forget to subscribe for more AI lessons. See you in the next video.